Hi, my name is Nick Anderson, and today I'm going to show you how to make Jake Kiszka of Greta Van Fleet's guitar tones using just Logic Pro X stock plugins. We'll go through all of these different amps. I've got 2 different songs I did these tones from, and I think you'll love them. If you don't want to spend the time to make these plugins with me, that's just fine. I actually have the channel strip settings, the presets, down below in the description. All right, let's get right into these tones.
Okay, so let's take a look here. The first thing I did was from Highway Tune, and he actually uses 2 guitar tones during that. You can hear one on the left side, and then the right one comes in as they start. So let's start with this tone. I did put the other instruments in here. You can see I played a little bass, little drums in there so that we could get the full picture. So that's the left side one. So you can get the point on that. So we're going to start. I'm going to show you how to do this left guitar here, which to me almost is like telephony. So we started with a pedal board. So always start with a pedal board. A lot of people will start with the amp in Logic, but if you think about your signal chain when you're actually playing, it's your pedal board. Your guitar goes into your pedal board and then into the amp. So always start with the pedal board. So on this pedal board, we have a squash compressor, a high drive treble boost, and a spring box. Now, this is the tricky part about Greta Van Fleet. A lot of times, if you are looking at their rig rundowns and stuff, you'll notice that they have Marshall amps on stage, and you're like, Nick, a Marshall amp doesn't have the spring reverb. But when they're recording and things, they do use a spring reverb. Jake actually talks about it in one of his videos. But anyway, so we've got a squash compressor here that's all the way on the bottom. Drag that in first, and then I put the attack on fast. Sustain at negative 15.5, and then the level I crank to 9.5. Treble boost, you are going to put the level at 13, and I put that on just treble, not full. I don't want that full, like there's a lot of low end and stuff in there, and I want kind of this like crackly, grungy crunch in there. Not grungy, but a crunch. And then the spring box, this one was a little bit more difficult, but we're going to put that on medium for time. Tone, negative 40. Style, boutique, and mix at 33. Next up, we have the amp. And here's where more things get weird in Logic. So he does use Marshall amps. He actually uses a Marshall Astoria when they play live, and there's only like 30 of those made. And most people don't have the money for that. Also, he plays a 1961 SG, and I know I don't have the money for a 1961 SG. So here's the thing with Logic. Not all of their amps sound perfect to, like, if I'm trying to match that Marshall Astoria, I'm not going to necessarily go right away to that Marshall amp. So that's why we use a little bit something different here. So we're going to use the Pawn Shop amp. And then the cabinet is the Pawn Shop 1x8. I used a ribbon mic, ribbon 121, and you can see where my placement is there. Here, I'll make this a little bit bigger. This is one of the biggest things for tone and Logic, especially with guitar amps. People often miss out is the actual placement of the mic and what type of mic. So you can see the settings a little bit better there. Let's go to the amp here. Gain. What is that? It doesn't tell me, but oh no! I just lost it. All right, we'll reload the preset here. All right. So the gain is about 3 or 4 there. Bass is almost all the way down. It's just a teeny weeny bit up. Mids at like 9, treble halfway. Reverb on. I know we've got a reverb in our pedal board, but I do want a little bit of the amp reverb as well. So that's at about 2.5, 3. And then our effects here is off because we don't want that. Presence is 3/4 of the way up plus a tiny bit. And then master is dimed because it's rock and roll, people. So let's rock. And then after that, I've got a channel EQ just to mess with some of the frequencies that I did or didn't like. I did a little bit of a sweep here. 136 hertz, 12 dB, 0.43. I did another sweep right here, 218 hertz, negative 5.4 dB, and 0.27. Tiny little boost at 1020 hertz, just a plus 1.8 dB with a little curve of 4.5 there. And then we've got a little curve here as well at 2340 hertz, plus 1.9 dB, and 3.4 curve there. And then we've got, this is, we're taking out the high frequencies there at 6550 hertz, 24 dB, and 0.67 for the curve there. And that's our tone. So it's really only 3 different things that make up that first tone. And again, this is what it sounds like. So if you listen back to the actual song, you'll notice it is kind of like that. This is kind of a weird guitar tone. I don't know that I would use this on its own, but it does sound good once it comes in with the other. I mean, that right there, those just, that sounds awesome. Again, if you're already annoyed and you're like, I don't want to spend all the time doing this, again, I've got the link to these presets in the description. Otherwise, let's just keep rolling here. So the other guitar from Highway Tune, this one is panned to the right, plus 35. I did forget to mention that for the other one. I panned it to the left, minus 36. Just a little bit of a difference there because rock and roll. So let's take a look at this amp. Again, starting with the pedalboard first. This one's got a little bit more on it. We have the squash compressor, same settings as before, fast, sustain at negative 20, and level all the way up. The high drive treble boost at 13 on treble. Now here's our difference. I'm putting a happy face fuzz in there. The fuzz at 3.8 dB, and the volume at negative, or is that negative? Yeah. Negative 13. And then the spring box here, I believe, is the same as well. Medium on the time, negative 31 for tone, boutique style, and mix of 18. Then we've got our amp next in the chain. And this one we actually did use a Marshall. And then I used a dynamic 609 on the amp cabinet because that's what he uses live, and I love that live tone that he has, and I think that that's what he's using here, or something very similar in that Highway Tune. And my bad, this isn't a Marshall amp, this is a Logic amp in cursive writing, but we all know it's a Marshall. Gain, let's look here, amp, vintage British head. The Marshall Astoria is, supposed to be like that old vintage vibe, so we're going with the vintage British head. Cabinet is the modern British 4x12 mic dynamic 609, and then take a look at my mic placement there. Again, super important. If you do everything else and forget the mic placement, it'll sound nothing like it. Mic placement is so important. So gain, you can see it's at 4 there, bass 3, mids 7, treble 5.5, reverb is on but just at 2, so not much of it. Effects off, we don't need that crap. And then the presence is at 8.5, master at 10. And let's go to our channel EQ here. You can see I did another sweep on the bottom and a sweep on the top. And then you can just pause and take a look at my settings here, but you can see I did a few different little mountains up, a little dip, and you can kind of, check out the EQ there. Boom. So that's how you get those first 2 tones. I mean, check this out. So cool. So that is the Highway Tune guitar tones. And next up, I am just going to do the guitar tone that I copied it from their song My Way Soon, but it's also just like the guitar tone that I think of when I think of Greta Van Fleet. So this is just, I'm calling it the new album tone. Jake Kiszka, Greta Van Fleet, new album tone, because it's the sound of his guitar on the new album. So let's check this amp out. All right, let's get rid of all this stuff. Boom, boom. Okay, let's make this big. And here I played some stuff beforehand for us. This one is a lot more complicated, I will say, because this tone is not supposed to be able to be made in Logic. So it did take some finagling, you might say. So let's take a look here. I started with a tube EQ because I wanted this to have that tube sound. Just making sure that's still going. Okay, so I started this one with a tube EQ because I wanted it to have that tube sound. And we've got quite a few differences here. Honestly, I think I did just go with a preset on this one, electric rhythm guitar. And yeah, so that's easy. Starting the chain out, electric rhythm guitar. I may have changed some of these frequencies a little bit, but again, you can take a pause and take a look at those. And then we went to Pedalboard. Simple pedalboard on this one. The high drive treble boost, dimed with just treble. And then the vintage drive, you can see I have it off here. He stomps a drive on and off when they're playing, and I wanted you to be able to do that same thing. So you actually get kind of two tones in one here. I put the drive at 32.8, the tone at 990 hertz, left fat on because fat bottom girls make the world go round, and 6.2 dB on the level because we want to punch that forward a little bit. So this is where you would, sometimes when he does those cool little licks and things like that, this is where you would want that vintage drive. And if you just want a little extra rock, then you just press this button and cool. So moving on to the amp, the important part. This time we've got a mixture of the Logic / Marshall amp and a Pawn Shop 1x8. The Pawn Shop 1x8, I had a feeling it would get me the tone I wanted because it has a crunchy tone. It's really hard to get good crunches in Logic. And I don't mean crunch. It's not hard to get crunch. It's hard to get good crunch in Logic. So let's take a look at this. We got our gain at 4, our bass at 8, our mids at 7.5, and our treble at 10. Reverb on, but just at 2. Effects off. We don't like the effects in the amp here. Presence just above 4.5, and the master just below 10. We're using a dynamic 609, and check out the mic placement on this one. It's quite a bit different. It is all the way in the back left, and that's right in the center of the speaker there too. It gives us that exact tone that we want. And then I did go ahead and take the output down by -10 because I really wanted to push the amp like a tube. Okay, then we've got a few more things because we just still weren't quite there. I messed around with those 3 things to see if I could just do it with less, and I could, but it just wasn't the same as putting some of this extra stuff on it. So we got the low and high pass again. Little bit of a valley here. 386 hertz we boosted by 2 dB at a curve of 3.8. Then we've got a bigger frequency range that we boosted here, 655 hertz plus 0.9 dB and a spread of 0.41. Our blue here, 2240 hertz plus 3.4 dB and a 1.9 spread. And then just our pass here, 6650 hertz down 24 dB at 0.67. I'm not sure if I said this red one here, but 131 hertz, 12 dB down and 0.71. Now let's move on to our exciter. This one's real easy. It's a preset in Logic. Do add silver, and then make sure your frequency is at 13,300 hertz. I did change that a little bit from the preset, I believe. Cool. And then one more thing. We still didn't have exactly the tone I wanted, so I used a compressor on this one. You're going to go to the classic VCA. And I believe this one is a regular preset on there as well. Classic guitar. And then I don't think I changed anything on here. You know, I did. I think I changed the mix. 60.5%. Make sure that that is the input-output mix. And then this I changed to the distortion should be soft. These three knobs, I believe I left the same as that classic guitar preset. So that is your tone then. Here's what this tone is going to sound like. Again, this is kind of that new album tone. This is the riff from My Way Soon. And if you don't want to spend all the time making these presets, again, I've got the link in the description. You can just download the amps and load them into your own Logic Pro X. They're all stock plugins, so if you have Logic Pro, you can load this in and just start playing right away. And the other cool thing is that I also include an instructional video on how to load those presets into Logic, because I know that that can be confusing the first time you do it. So let's check this out. So it's worth noting that my guitar settings here, I rolled back the volume a little bit to about 6.5, 7. And then I also did the same with the tone. If you have humbuckers, that'll be similar for you, but you can kind of mess around with your volume and tone knobs on your guitar to get it to sound like you want to. Obviously, this is a little bit less right here, than, when they're going full bore. And that's why we talked about that Pedalboard here, where you can grab the vintage drive on there and then it'll sound like this. So that's off, on. Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of how to make Jake Kiszka's guitar tones from, specifically from Highway Tune and from My Way Soon, but a lot of these tones are the same on a lot of songs. So I really hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Hit that like button. It makes my day when I see a new subscriber or a like or a comment. And if you record anything with these tones, I would absolutely love to hear them. So drop a link in the comments. I'll check it out. That'd be sweet. And with that, my name's Nick Anderson. Check out the description links below for any of this gear, presets, all that stuff. And we'll see you in the next video. Rock on.